Tuesday, May 19th. I hope that everybody had a great long weekend. I'm sure that everybody had great plans and had a good weekend. To open up today's meeting, I wanted to touch on a couple of things. I think over the past, I guess we're into 9 weeks now, our community, our country really has shown a strength of resiliency. And with everything that has been, everything that we've been asked to do, I think for the most part, we've risen to the challenge. And it hasn't been without, a lot of hard work and dedication and sacrifices, both by those that work on the front line, whether they are hospital care workers, nurses, doctors, orderlies, PSWs, those in our long-term care homes, those that stock our shelves at the grocery store, those that work our gas stations, and even our municipal staff can be considered frontline workers. Delivery truck people, truck drivers, anybody in the food services and in food production. So, they have shown that they've made sacrifices, risen to the occasion, and have been able to serve our country. The snowbirds, as we all know, flew over the country in show of support for those working in the front line, but also just for everyday Canadians. And they banded together and wanted to thank the country for what they've done and to kind of lift our spirits. And of course, in the events on the weekend, we're very well aware that tragedy unfortunately hit the snowbirds with an accident that I can only imagine for those on the ground witnessing it must have been horrific. But certainly the snowbirds rose to the occasion to support us, and we'd like to take a moment to honor Captain Jen Casey in the loss of her life. But also, I think I need to make this announcement as well, that resident in Lucan and one of our crossing guards, so a staff member of Lucan Badolf, Terry Hickson, passed away last night. And certainly I know that you'll all join me in sending your thoughts and prayers if you're inclined to do so, but memories and remembrances to the Hickson family. It's quite an extended family. He's beyond being our crossing guard. He's certainly well known. So if you just join me for a moment of silence in remembrance of Terry, but also for Captain Jen Casey. Thank you very much. All right, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, moving on. We have no in-camera session this week, no petitions or delegations. You've seen the minutes for May the 5th, and unless there wasn't anything to amend or add or change, if I can get a motion to approve the minutes as approved, Councillor Westman, and a seconder, Councillor Regan. And all opposed to that? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the business arising. I think we're going to speak about Frank Street later, so we'll leave that. Other than that, if there's nothing that council requires an update on, we'll just move on from that. Okay, communication reports. Staff hasn't pulled any of the correspondence that we've received in the last 2 weeks. So I will ask you if there's anything that you wanted to speak to. I did want to highlight the media release, which was the first one. And it, of course, references a partnership program between Thames Valley District School Board, a number of municipalities, and Cisco. It's actually a great announcement, and this started obviously when everything went into shutdown and children were having to work from home, and there was some questions about internet in the rural areas, and actually in some semi-urban areas. And so Thames Valley partnered with Cisco to, yes, it is Cisco. I'm looking at my notes here. To expand the Wi-Fi usage at certain either municipal buildings and or libraries. And if you read the report, you'll see the number of buildings that were included in that. It should be noted that actually our library, there was a number of communities that weren't part of this program. Our community, being Lucan, wasn't one of them, but the county on their own has expanded the Wi-Fi availability at the library. And so people can get a Wi-Fi signal from outside. So I think it's important for our residents to know that if they're experiencing Wi-Fi issues, either through restricted data plans, or maybe they don't have the kind of service that they need now that, you know, family is home with work and school, that coming to the parking lot at the library is certainly an issue. So we want to certainly thank the county for doing that. Are there any other comments that questions about the communications that we received in the last 2 weeks? Councillor Regan.
Thank you. Guys, just if I could, I just wanted to talk about just what you were talking about the Wi-Fi, because I posed a question earlier, and I know there's a lot of stresses on family. They've got 3, 4, 5 members using the same internet at the home, and then Minister Lecce's comments this afternoon about how school, for example, is going to look a lot different. And I'm just wondering, is there any other opportunities that we have to providing spot for our residents? And again, I don't even know if it's in our wheelhouse, but I just think as a municipality or as that we could, but I mentioned the community center, if there was a way of maybe we can access that, or if we can have people maybe supervise, we can have proper protocols for social distancing. I'm just wondering, because I'm not seeing it getting any better. And I'm just kind of thinking about families. I'm thinking about kids as a teacher. And I've been online for since March. And I know the stresses that people are having, a number of people that are not having that access. So I'm just wondering, and it's just a question I'm posing, is it something that we could look at down the road? And again, like I said, when I just read this, I think this is wonderful, but I just wonder if there's more that we can do for the residents.
Yep. Certainly, yeah. I think Paul will want to comment for that. One of the things I think that we need to be cognizant about is as restrictions are still on public facilities. But Paul, is there something that you might like to add to this conversation?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say the same thing. I believe recreational facilities are in phase 3 of reopening. So they'll be one of the last things that we'll be allowing public to have access to. That being said, I don't see an issue with maybe we could reach out to the county and see if there's a way we can reconfigure our access ports that are in the facility to outside the facility, or at least to the internal outside walls, so we can increase our bandwidth. I know several cars pull up during the day to use the Wi-Fi, but that could be a possibility we could look into as well.
One of the spots that might work is right along the senior center, right in there. that might be a good spot, but we'll leave it with you to maybe see what sort of options are available, and you can get back to us, report back to us. Is that good?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments to be made on the communications that were received? Okay, moving on to committee reports. I don't believe there's anything from the CEDC. I don't think there's any plans to meet anytime soon. Is there, Lisa or Peter? I don't think.
Nothing quite yet, Kathy. I know we need to look at the CIP stuff, but that's with the county and Dirk and Kara, and they're kind of in the same situation right now too.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think we all want to keep business going as much as we can. But I know that I think we should also be cognizant of, you know, as what's being rolled out, what can be done. So as long as you're in communication with them so that we can make sure that that doesn't get lost, that would be good. Blue water, anything, Deputy Mayor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Mastrakis, before we move on. Sorry.
Yeah, a question related to the committees. And I don't know how everybody's time is currently, but is there the option of maybe doing a anonymous survey of the committees, just asking how they found the committees, what can be done currently, maybe just get some feedback from the committee members out there and see if they have some thoughts.
Like specific to the CEDC or beyond?
But Parks and Rec, or whatever.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Might be an option, be something to do at this point because nothing else is really happening.
Yeah, we might get some thoughts from them. I'm not sure.
I know that's something that we talked about, kind of getting feedback, what everybody was getting from the committees and from their volunteer time. So maybe I can leave that with Lisa and Paul, and maybe you can work on something and kind of structure that.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Okay, Blue Water, Deputy Mayor.
We meet Thursday.
Okay, great. I see that Adelaide Metcalf got their bins, so that's somebody, a new municipality has joined to the Blue Water family. So Lake Huron, nothing until June. Fire boards, there's 2 sets of minutes there, and they are in draft form, but they're just for your information at this point. Did you have anything to add, Ron or Alex? Okay. ABCA and Upper Thames. Councillor Westman.
We have a ABCA meeting on Thursday, a Zoom meeting, and the Upper Thames River is next week on Tuesday.
Great, thank you very much. Parks and Rec, nothing. Canada Day. Lisa, did you just want to speak to that since the announcement's been made since our last council meeting?
Yep. Obviously, we've canceled the public events for Canada Day for this year. We did not receive the money from Canada Heritage, our grant, so we never did get it. So we don't have to, come up with a report to them about why or what we're going to do with the funds. We never did receive them anyway. So we put a post out on Facebook just kind of asking people ideas of what they think we can do for Canada Day. How do we virtually celebrate it? And so we're just kind of combining all those ideas right now. We'll come back to council with kind of some thoughts on how we can celebrate in a virtual way and come together as a community still somehow on July 1st.
Okay. Councillor Regan, did you have a comment?
I did. I'm sorry, Lisa. I'm just saying, why didn't we get the money? Because we canceled it?
It just hadn't come yet.
Oh,
they hadn't sent it yet. So I mean, yeah.
I'm always concerned when we don't get money. Okay, thanks.
No, it was approved, but it just never got here yet.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, staff reports. Ron. You have to unmute yourself there.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm unmuting. I'm going to try something new here. I need to share my screen. And hopefully this works. Madam Mayor, can you see what I see on the screen? Okay, very good. So before you tonight, we have a PowerPoint presentation on sort of restarting or reopening our facilities and our services to a full degree. So this presentation is basically the same one that is being given to all the lower tier municipalities in the county. And what we're trying to do is be consistent across all the lower tiers and how we open up our facilities and open our doors. The goal there is to try and be consistent across the county and not create confusion, whereas it's one thing happening in say Thames Center and a different thing happening in Lucan Biddulph and a different thing happening in Strathroy Caradoc. So we'll just quickly go through this. This was not included in your package, so hopefully everybody can see this adequately here. So, and of course now it's not going to work for me. Okay, let me try something here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the provincial phases of COVID-19 emergency, of course, everybody understands and has heard through the province that there's 3 phases. Those 3 phases are protect, restart, and recover. And during the province's protect phase, Lucan Biddulph has continued to deliver. Most business operations and municipal functions were not required to be closed by the provincial emergency order. So again, the reopening was announced by Premier Ford on the 27th of April. And again, this slide shows the three various stages. So I won't read it to you exactly. But if you, so similar to the provincial recovery plan, Lucan Biddulph will create a 3-phase recovery plan that will closely align with the province and other lower tier municipalities within the county. The safety of our residents and staff will, of course, be paramount when it comes to progressing from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. So how we do progress from phase 1 through to phase 3 will be based on how the pandemic is managed as we flatten the curve. I think everybody's getting tired of hearing that, but that's still the best way to describe it. So, and of course, with regard to timelines, we'll continue to take direction from the Middlesex London Health Unit in association with other lower tier municipalities in the county. And similar to the province, Lucan Biddulph's plan will be based on flexibility and adaptability as we recover and resume operations. So considerations as part of the project, we need to adhere to provincial orders. Example, the existing or lifting of the ban of 5 people, the restriction of 5 people that is still in place as of today. We also need to coordinate with shared services, for example, the YMCA daycare plus the library. We also need to, or we would like to obviously coordinate with other lower tier municipalities to keep that consistency across the county. We have to take into account our risk tolerance. We need to ensure adequate staffing, resources, and safety, and ensure the right amount of safety protocols are in place. So the 3-part strategy to our restart project is phase 1, most municipalities or most facilities, operations in public areas will remain closed. Under phase 2, the gradual reopening of facilities, operations in public areas. And as of the latest information we have from the province, we are now moving into phase 2 already. Phase 3 will be the complete opening of facilities, operations in public areas. So this is going to be an ongoing operation that will be determined by the number of cases, and we really have to keep an eye on those cases, deaths, and what we're trying to do obviously is minimize the impact to places like long-term care homes, retirement homes, etc. So under phase 1, our municipal areas, which include park green spaces for walking trails and the actual trails, are open. Municipal areas that are closed include the playground equipment, splash pads, skate parks, courts, washroom facilities, sports fields, pools, pavilions, community memorial center, and the dog park. Now, since this has been written, that is already starting to change. You'll know I hope everybody has heard Mr. Ford, Premier Ford. Things like some outside courts will be open. I've even heard about skate parks. We need to determine how we can kind of keep on top of those skate parks so that we don't run afoul of those 5 people gathering numbers, plus we still need to maintain that 2-meter physical distancing. Also the dog park, most dog parks are now open. However, I believe, and I don't see Paul on my screen here, but Paul Smith, the Park and Recs manager, I believe, was doing some repair work to the dog park this week. So I don't believe our park is open at this stage. Again, municipal facilities will be closed in addition to such services as the libraries and the YMCA daycare. Both of those are still closed. The municipal office will have limited staff, no public, and emergencies by appointment only. So I believe Councillor Reagan has a question. Go ahead, Dan. You can unmute yourself. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. I thought I heard that libraries were available for pickup and drop off. Is that, or did I not hear that right?
They're starting that. Okay. So I don't believe they're open yet, but they're going to be moving towards that. So they're in the process of figuring out staffing and protocols and that kind of thing to be able to provide that curbside service.
Great. Thank you, Ron.
So sorry, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Just on that note to Councillor Reagan, from what I understand from the county level, they're going to first implement just, pick up and drop off sort of thing. But I think, again, they're going to do a phased in approach and probably start with the comprehensive libraries, and they may not even start with all of them all at once. So just follow the library information on social media, and that will all be announced as they get their plan together in place.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. And of course, the meetings, our council meetings will remain virtual for the time being here. So under phase 2, some municipal areas will open, including the phase 1 plus dog parks, washroom facilities, possibly. Again, we have to discuss that. Pavilions, some sports fields, and courts. And those are, they have to be open with the recognition that there can't be team sports. Things like, I guess track and field. If you were training for sprinting, that's kind of a one-person type sport that would be allowed. I don't know that there's a whole lot of that going on, but things like tennis, badminton, those kinds of activities can proceed. Again, you always have to keep in the back of your mind that the province wants you to continue to keep your 2-meter separation. Municipal areas that would remain closed include the actual playground equipment itself, the splash pads, the skate parks, and the pool. And again, you'll see the word skate parks in there. And the previous slide looked like skate parks were mentioned as partly to be open in accordance with the provincial plan. So this is where the gray area comes in, and we're going to have to, as a municipality, decide how we want to proceed with those skate parks. Do we want to keep them closed because they're too hard to enforce physical distancing? Do we need to concern ourselves with the physical distancing? I would suggest, because most of the skateboarders are minors, that our responsibility is to them and to ensure that they maintain their distance. I at this point, at this day and age, I think we need to keep those closed for that very same purpose. And the pool obviously is going to continue to be closed. It is closed now anyway, but I'm getting the sense from the rest of the county CAOs that the pool season this summer could be non-existent. I think it might suffer the same fate as Bacon Fest. So again, at this stage, some municipal facilities will begin to open. The Lions Active Living Center, the Lucan Community Center, on an as-needed basis, and such services, including the library and the YMCA daycare, may start to open on a limited basis. The municipal office would be open to staff, but to the public by appointment only. And I'm looking for some feedback from council, because I'm not hearing too much out on the street that people are upset that the municipal office door is closed. I think the office is doing the best we can, trying to accommodate people, and we have, I think, accommodated most people who need to get in here. So I'm not hearing a lot. So if members of council do hear complaints like that, please forward them to me so we're aware of them. And again, meetings such as this will remain virtual during phase 2. So during phase 3, at this stage, most municipal facilities and park amenities will reopen to the public. It may be on a scaled approach. Again, it's going to depend on the The restriction as far as the numbers for gatherings go. Municipal areas closed include, and those are to be determined based on need and timing. And again, we take direction from the province, number one, and number two from the health unit. So the municipal office will reopen to the public with appropriate screening processes in place prior to entering the building. And meetings may remain virtual or a hybrid of in-person and virtual. So those operations or those items are going to have to be sort of ironed out as we go through the next probably month. Again, a bit of an update today. Premier Ford announced that schools will remain closed till the end of February until the end of June. So this school year is done. So I think it's a fair guess to say that we're going to be in this position for quite a while yet. We're looking into July. I believe the border with the US is they're looking at June 21st as to reopening that. So at this stage, we're still fairly tightly locked down. But again, the aim, I think, is to try and slowly reopen businesses and everything else. So, final considerations. This plan is not defined, nor is it prescriptive that it will be strictly adhered to. There may be some services identified that are best suited in a different phase than referenced in this presentation. So again, very fluid. Staff, along with the emergency control group, will monitor the situation and make adjustments as necessary. Both council and the public will be kept apprised as to recovery efforts that are underway once Lukenbadolf's project restart is enacted. And then finally, any questions? So I shall stop the sharing so I can see everybody on the screen. So does anybody have any questions with regards to this?
Oh,
No.
Peter, yep.
yeah. So how is it? So it's flowing from county down, and does each municipality have a health and safety committee that gets involved, or how does this flow through? And are there additional supports we need for you guys in the area of health and safety? Is there something we need to support the team in these times? Because we're getting in different areas and that we haven't been in before.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it, sorry, to answer your question, Mr. Councillor, I think a lot of it depends on your staff, and communication with staff is very important. So Paul has been communicating with his staff, Jeff has been communicating with his staff, and Catherine communicates with her staff. And we actually had everybody on a Zoom call, I believe it was last week or the week before, to get everybody together, because obviously not everybody is in the office at the same time these days, so you don't get to see everybody. So we had a joint meeting just basically to check people's mental health. Number one, how's everybody doing? Do you need anything? Is anybody feeling nervous? Is anybody concerned about coming back? And again, I didn't want people to feel centered out. I said to everyone, I said, if you are concerned, please come to me one-on-one and let me know how you're feeling. And certainly I think everybody is I think fairly comfortable with how things are going right now. We do have the germ shields that are going to be installed at the front counter. So when the doors do open, that there'll be a sort of a plexiglass shield. We also have ordered a number of face masks. I believe that we were in the order of 2,500 face masks. And that number is large enough because we are concerned after talking to people in the industry that there is going to be a time when those are in short supply, and we do expect that the rules coming down from either the province or the province and the health unit may require people who are out in public to wear a mask, mandatory. So if that were to happen, you'd see a quick run on masks. So we've stocked up, and most of those masks are single-use masks. So when I say single-use, I mean one person could use one for the day, but they can't be reused. Not this type anyway. So if we do get to that stage where it is mandatory, we may look at buying some reusable masks for each individual employee, and use the masks, whether they, council and the CEDC committee may decide to give a certain number to each of the local businesses as a bit of a helper to get them a bit of a kickstart. But right now we've got them. We feel good about having them. I think that's important. That makes people feel better as well. So I think to answer your question, do we need anything? I don't think we need anything at this point. But again, it depends on what happens down the road. If we do get that second wave, if it does come in and cause people some angst, some nervousness, then we'll deal with that at that point in time. But I don't think there's anything that we need from a monetary standpoint or from an equipment standpoint or anything like that. I think we're okay.
One follow-up question. Is there through the group plan an employee assistance line? So that's available for staff as well to call? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Through Morneau Chappelle has a mental health hotline that you can call, and that's been distributed. And that is a good point. We could maybe reissue that again, just so that everybody is aware of it. I believe this week's a pay week, so maybe Catherine, is part of the pay thing on Thursday, we can send a reminder out what that number is and just remind people that if they are feeling nervous or any kind of issues at all that they want to deal with, maybe their spouse is laid off or something, or they have some money issues, those are certainly cause a lot of stress. So if they need to talk to somebody, certainly that's the contact number that they can call.
I just wanted to circle back to something you said, Councillor Mastarakis, about it coming from the county. I think, if I'm correct, it didn't come from the county. This came from Ron working with his peers at the CAO level. Okay. So it's not a county plan, but as members of the county, they've kind of come up with a plan that each community is trying to appropriately work for their community. Am I right about that?
Correct.
Yeah.
We have a bi-weekly county CAO meetings, and during those meetings, we talk about all the issues that everybody's having. And it's like this PowerPoint presentation was really initiated from Middlesex Center. They're the ones that started it, and of course they share with everybody, and there's no point in reinventing the wheel if it looks good. So, and again, many thanks to Maggie Smith. She is the master. I'm too old to learn new tricks. A lot of new tricks. She did a great job preparing that for me as well. So.
And I'll just get to you in a second, Paul. Another point that Councillor Mastarakis made, I just wondered if you can clarify this, Ron. We do have a health and safety committee, and are you working with them like for a pandemic plan or a pandemic re-entry plan? Or were they brought into the mix, or how did that work?
We technically do not have an active committee at this time. During the budget process, remember, we had an amount of money in there to retain a consultant to get us up and going. So Julie, actually, I sent an email to Julie earlier today about asking how are we coming with that? Are we moving forward? And that's part of it. So okay. So yes, but the standard operating procedures, I've got Joanne working on getting those set for the office environment. I believe Paul has already got his set up. Jeff was the first one. He had his set up. So yeah, we are doing the standard operating procedures, and those are made up with, as a result of meeting with the staff. So they're very much involved. We're not a large organization, so it's not that difficult to call in these people.
Okay, thanks. Paul.
Yes, if I may as well follow up with that. So in my department, we've been meeting weekly with the recreational managers and community service managers, and it's been very valuable, I think. And I think we've all been almost discussing that after this is all over, it may be something we continue doing, because it's been very valuable to keep consistency in the county. And we've also developed, once again, through Middlesex Center, they're really on top of this. They've been we're developing a spreadsheet that we've been sending across, and to just update on facilities and amenities and what our plans are on opening, and just additional notes. So that way, when we are coming to council, we're able to present you with all the information across the board of what everyone else is doing. Because I know a lot of these aren't easy decisions. Even so some of the clarification we had to get this week from the medical officer of health, a lot of it often comes down to municipalities should only open these amenities when it's safe to do so. And a lot of the decision-making still, you're allowed to do this, but how comfortable does the municipality feel? And I think we're trying to just kind of bounce those feelings across the board and make sure that we're all on board. And I know everyone's slightly different. Like we're not necessarily the same as Strathroy, Caradoc, or Middlesex Center on everything, because we're very different sizes, but we're trying our best to keep consistent messaging, especially our residents travel back and forth between all these places. So,
Ron.
So just one more point. Paul brings up a good point. For example, the washroom facilities that are in Elm Street Park near the splash pad. If the splash pad is going to be closed and the playground equipment is off limits, I think, you know, we really have to question: do we need to open those washroom facilities, and is that the right thing to do? You know, I suspect at this point my thought process would be no, it's not, because not only is it going to take more, it's going to take more staff and time to do that. But number two, there's costs involved and there's a risk involved, because, you know, is once a day enough? Is twice a day enough? Is 3 times a day? Is once an hour? You know, I don't know. So all those questions come up. In my mind, I'm thinking once a day is really not sufficient. But what is sufficient? I don't know. And that's where we would look. I think, Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think we'd look to the health unit for some direction if council's collective decision was to that yes, we should open those washroom facilities.
Yep, Paul.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I believe the health unit would be the main people to go to, as well as our organizations like ORFA and PRO, because they're developing standard operating procedures, and a lot of the health units are reaching out to them to see what their advice is to operate. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes, and a lot of it even though we're allowed to do, we may have to be wise to wait and see kind of what those procedures are before we commit to opening some of these facilities.
And I don't know the source. I was reading one commentary where large public events, one of the reasons they won't open up is because the public bathrooms and the high risk of those facilities. So and that was the discussion. Do we need resources to go to a medical expert to provide us the guidance to make that? And it should be, if it's templated from the CAO group or ORFA or one of those that comes down to us, so we don't have to pay 20 municipalities paying the same fee for information. If there's some kind of like a franchise operation, so to speak, where head office does it and here's what we all sign up for, and it's legally approved, medically approved, and so forth. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think that they're probably on the same page with that, you know. Paul, did you follow it?
Just to follow up on that, absolutely. That's part of why we pay into these memberships for these organizations. And I think what their advice is valuable. And I think the fact that the people who are in charge of enforcing things are going to them to find out best practices, that should be our wisest bet to follow what they're suggesting.
Right. Any other further questions for Ron or comments on his presentation for Project Restart?
Nice presentation, Ron. That was a slick deck, and sharing the screen, you did awesome.
Like I said, I can't take credit for that. Maggie did a great job, and obviously we had a template from Middlesex Center to start with. So I just had a couple more. I think we talked about the germ shields at the front counter. We talked about the ordering of the 2,500 face masks. The last thing I had on my list was the, just so council is aware, and we did have an official plan update meeting with BM Ross and the planners, I believe it was mid last week. I just want to make sure that doesn't fall off the edge of the desk there, that we're still moving forward on that one. So that continues, albeit a little bit behind schedule with the implementation of this COVID lockdown that has held us up probably about 2 months worth. But we did get it, I think, Jeff, and you can correct me, and Tina, I believe we're back on track with BM Ross. That was a good meeting to have, and we should, I'm hoping for the August meeting, we've got a pretty good handle on where we're going. So thank you.
Great. Any questions for Ron? Okay, moving on. Tina, did you have anything?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to let you know there is a bylaw included for execution of a subdivision agreement, and that is for phase 4 of Old Clover Village. and it's the approval of 33 lots in total. And that agreement has been signed by the numbered company. So the bylaw included is to authorize our approval and execution of that. I don't know if Jeff has anything to add to that, but that is one of the bylaws included. Another one included is the Nagel Drive agreement, which we're all familiar with. And yeah, that's everything from here.
Okay. Dave.
Maybe Ron or Jeff can answer the 33 lots, that agreement. Is it build out on that 66 or something, isn't it, or no? On that subdivision?
I'll let Jeff.
Like I was surprised. Why are they only submitting for half, or did they say why? Or
yeah, so there's been a change in direction on the Lucan Estates. Originally, it was set for 66, or roughly around that. You're exactly right, Deputy Mayor. In the process of the change in direction and ownership on the Lucan Estates, the next phase, they've decided to go with like a two-stage. So they're only going to open up enough to do the 33. Once they get that, then they're going to go on and then do the next 33 or the next part of it. So originally phase 4 was to be 60 homes or 57, somewhere in there. They just chose to only open up 33 for now.
okay, thanks.
So then will there have to be another subdivision agreement for the other 33 lots or 30 lots?
There will be,
Okay.
yes.
So it'll be then phase 5, essentially.
Yeah, or a B and A.
Or 4, yeah. Okay. Councillor Reagan.
I might have missed it, but I'm just wondering, what's the reason for doing that?
That's the request by the developer. We originally were looking at phase 4 as being the larger one. We were moving along with it, and then all of a sudden and that's why it's been Ron, it's been a bit of not a negotiation, but an interesting putting the agreement back together, because it has changed. It kind of changed in midstream, but no, that was a request by the developer to only limit it to 33.
I think it should be noted like it's a new developer, right? There's been a change of hands as to who owns that. So
Yeah, and I think it might be a fair comment to say that, in this climate, they didn't want to stick their neck out that far. So, let's try this first and make sure we're going to be okay.
All right, thank you.
this is like a new developer to Lucan. This is the first, this particular one has,
Correct.
This is their first investment in the community. So maybe tread softly. So any other questions for Tina or Ron? Okay, moving on. Finance, Catherine.
Thanks. I have one report there for you. So it's been a couple months now that we've been under this state of emergency. So I would put together some financial numbers for you related to it. And know that back in the end of March, we did some financial relief. So I just have that highlighted a little bit in there as well. I'll just speak on some of the points. So under our water, wastewater, so we did back in March, we did decide to defer the rate increases to the June 30th. And I did a report on that on April 7th about the financial impact of that. And also we approved to defer the application of late charges for those billings until June 30th. So that just gives people to the end of June to pay those bills. And the good news is that it looks like people are paying their bills, as we are in the same situation as we were a year ago, as far as approximately the same number of people, the same amount of money was still outstanding after the April 16th due date. We also waived any NSF charges. That also applies to taxes as well. And we also didn't do any of the water disconnection activity for non-payment that would have taken place in March. So there are still some residents that still owe the December billing as well as the March billing. And the next bill date will be the end of June for water. And under property taxes, a bunch of notes there, but our next installment's due the end of next week. And we count on the property taxes that make up the majority of our revenue. So we're encouraging people that can pay to continue to pay those bills on time so that we can meet our financial obligations and be ready to have the funds available for the emergencies. And in relation to property taxes, of course, we already know that the school board has allowed delay payment of their share of the taxes until 90 days. So that'll result in 2 payments being due in December. We also pay the county every quarter, and they haven't changed any of their due dates at this time. So we still owe them their share of the taxes the end of June. We haven't heard anything from the upper governments about any financial support for municipalities. So with our due date of the taxes being the end of next week, we're still going to continue with the pre-authorized payment plan as scheduled. And as well, we do have a number of post-dated checks already in-house, and we'll continue to cash those. But if there's anyone that needs to have those held back until June, the end of June, or whatever future, they can make arrangements with us, or if they want to be removed from the PAP. And of course, again, we'll waive any NSF fees as well, as already approved. And then Parks and Rec, you've heard a lot of information already from Paul, but as far as the financial side of those things so far, as of to date, we've have lost revenue in about $9,800 for remaining of the ice rentals and halls and things like this. Of course, we don't know what could have been booked in this last 2 months. These are just cancellations of stuff that already was in place with the day camp and March break and stuff like that. And then under investments, we currently only have our bank accounts where we earn investment income, and that's based on our that's based on the prime rate, which we know changed a couple times in March. It still has fallen, so we're not making as much money on our bank accounts as in other months, and we don't have any other investments at this time. We're not looking at that right now. We want to see how our cash flow falls out after the big tax dues bills are due. So we don't want to tie up any money in investments right now, but we have that option if we want to look into that to recoup some of these bank account losses. And then we set up a separate account to gather expenses for COVID-19 in case we do get any information from the upper tiers or the provincial government that will help us, so we have that information ready. And as the day of this writing, it was only around $2,000, but that has gone up since we purchased the germ shields and the masks. But I'll continue to update this report as we move along, because there's other items that we don't have numbers on right now that revenue streams are going to lose, or there'll be costs involved, and they'll have those listed there. But also at the same time, there'll be cost savings that we'll have as a result of this, of not doing things, and utility savings, and not hiring staff for the summer if we go that route. But we don't have those numbers right now. So after I put all that together, I have one recommendation: should council want to offer any more financial relief to the residents, and that's listed there. And my recommendation would be to waive any penalty and interest normally imposed on June 1st for property taxes. And this essentially allows people another month to pay that, as things are starting to ramp back up. Hopefully people are getting back to work, or they need a bit more wiggle room as more of those financial assistance rolls out. And also the timing that aligns with where we are with everything else, where we put water, wastewater, everything's kind of that June 30th timeframe, and then we'll revisit it and keep monitoring where we are financially and what else can be done. Or we really don't know. If I had a crystal ball, I would know where we would be in 3 weeks or 2 months, but nobody knows. So this is the information, this is the facts that we have right now, and we will continue to monitor and look into it and as time goes on. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Okay, thank you very much for that report, Catherine. Certainly a lot of work went into that. So appreciate everything that you've incorporated into that. Deputy Mayor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, not on the report. I can do it at Business Horizon, but I got a question for Catherine. Want to do it now or?
Not on the report. Okay, then let's deal with the report first, and then I'll circle back to you. Okay. Any questions, comments on this? Councillor Mastarakis.
Catherine, no, excellent report. What keeps you up at night about the municipality, not the family, but the municipality? What keeps you up at night on the financials?
Just wondering where people, like what our cash flow will be like, and we'll have a good idea, a sense for that after the next installment comes in as due next week. So then we'll have an idea of our cash flow and what is out there as we move along. Right now we seem to be okay, but it seems people are paying their bills and things seem to be busy out there. People are moving around, and I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but anyway, that's cash flow will be a concern eventually, maybe if this goes on for months, but I think we'll be okay through the summer. As we get back into kind of the fall winter season, that'll be another story, but we'll see what goes on day by day.
Well, this has been a great opportunity coming into a municipality, never being with municipal finance before. So thank you for all the work you do. Much appreciated.
Baptism by fire.
Yeah.
Nothing about this is normal at all.
The one good thing is, if I've said it before amongst you, I apologize, but the one thing is we aren't in this alone. You know, we can, the staff can rely on our neighbors. They can work through these things together to kind of develop plans and recommendations and that sort of thing. And it's not like this is, you know, it's only Lucan Biddulph that is experiencing this. So, you know, if we can take any comfort in that. Ron? Just a quick comment too, and we're thankful we don't have buses, we don't have transit to worry about, because that really throws a wrench into the financial system for a municipality. So we're pretty fortunate not to have those problems. But what keeps me up at night is exactly what Catherine said. I'm not so worried for, you know, even the summer months, but yeah, if we get into September, October, and you know, all of a sudden the long range impacts start to be felt, and there's a lot of people that can't pay their taxes, that then becomes a problem, because Catherine did mention in her report, sure, the province has delayed the payment of the school board fees. However, all they've done is compressed everything to the end of the year. So the amount of money that we are required to pay the province for education still has to be paid in 2020. It's just, it's not until the very end. But I don't know that pushing payments back is really too helpful to people. I mean, it's at the end of the day, yeah, hopefully enough of our residents are continuing to draw a paycheck and working, and you know, had a little money saved up in the bank account that sort of the rainy day fund will carry them through this, we hope anyway. So time will tell. Okay, any comments on Catherine's report? She does have a recommendation in her report with regards to the penalty and interest. And we do have a motion in support of that that we can do at the end of the meeting. I'll leave it to the end of the meeting, and I'm assuming, since there hasn't been any comments, that that's the direction council's headed in. I think it aligns with what our neighbors are doing, and it does give, it aligns up with the other decisions that we've made with regards to water and wastewater. So we can deal with that recommendation at the end. Catherine, did you have anything else besides that?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Dave, did you want to ask your question now?
Just wanted to know, the accounts paid being back part of the public agenda, how we go about doing that, or if it's through council, or I kind of forget why it got changed, and I had a few people comment, previous councilors, on that, why we've shielded that, and yeah, just putting that back to the way it was, what I'd like to see.
That's fine with me. I can put that back. That was something that came up towards the end of last summer. I believe it was talked about, maybe others were doing it, that said, why do we have this in here with the listed of all the accounts? And it was discussed that we should take it out at that time, but I can't find anything official about that. I just remember that the conversations were had, but we can definitely put it back in at any time if you want to see that. And if there's anything truly that's, should be private, we can always just black that out. And as far as a person's name, and for that respect, but we can definitely put that back in if that's what you'd like to see.
And if someone else is opposed to it, I don't know.
Okay, Ron wants to say something, but I guess the question would be, do you need a motion for that, or can we just?
If I can make a suggestion, Madam Mayor, I think a motion would be appropriate. Just a verbal motion's fine. Just authorizing staff to revert back to the old system of the full listing of accounts to be paid and as paid.
Okay. Councillor Masterakis, Peter.
Yeah, one comment, Ron, there's some municipalities that actually removed it totally, not even going to councillors anymore. So they've gone, if I'm understanding, the accounts paid that's coming to us every so often as councillors is actually being removed altogether. It's not even coming to council in some municipalities. Have you heard about that happening?
I think there's a few that I'm aware of that's the case. They tend to be the larger ones, and the list is just too long. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it's almost cumbersome, and it adds too much thickness to council packages and things like that. So it's whatever council wants collectively, and that's the point I'm trying to make. If that's what council collectively wants, we can certainly do that. Just
that it's anyone can come and get it from our township, I realize, but
yeah.
It just seems odd that and I've heard that too, Peter, that people, that township, they have done that. Which is mind-boggling to me, to shield that from the constituents, that it's their money. That councillors don't even, I know it's weird, and account like that was even more mind-boggling to me as a councillor that represents the community. To shield that from them was even more mind-boggling, to shield it from the councillors. So yeah. I'm certainly in favor of putting it back in.
Okay. I know we get it at the county. I know a number of our neighbors, they publish them. So did you want to make a verbal motion to that effect, Deputy Mayor?
Sure, make that motion to put it back.
I'm just writing this down. Okay, you got that, Tina? You can, yeah. And a seconder for that, Councillor Westman. Okay. Any further discussion on that? All opposed? And that's carried. Great. So we'll look to have that published, I guess, when the May receipts are compiled. Any other questions for Catherine? Okay, moving on. I don't think we've got anything in planning. Public Works. Jeff. Oh, Dave.
Sorry, if I could just insert myself at this point for planning. Tina and I actually wanted to bring up a point of discussion for council members. We do have an application for an apartment building. I believe it's 5-story, Tina. It's on, I guess you could call it the south end of town. where the old burger pit used to be, for those of us old enough to remember where that used to be. But it's part of the old Clover Village. It was already pre-zoned. However, the height restriction was 10 meters, and that does not allow for a 5-story building. So Adam Verhoog is the applicant. He submitted plans, and sort of the next step in the application process is to number one, determine a public meeting. Now, we aren't going to be the first ones through this process. I believe Middlesex Center has a public meeting scheduled for this week, and I believe Strathroy Caradoc has one next week, or it might be opposite, something like that. But somebody has one this week, somebody has another one next week. So I believe Tina and I are going to kind of be watching those to see how those work. Ultimately, it's up to council as to whether those applications, because obviously that's something that we've never dealt with before. We've never dealt with a 5-story building. I believe it's 82 units in the building, in the application, Tina. So that's a large structure. It is, like I said, already pre-zoned for multi-unit residential on that site. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to any of the neighbors. The surprise may be the height. So at this point, we're looking for council direction. How do you want to proceed? Do you want us to sort of, I guess, schedule a meeting in, what would it be, July? Or would it be the second meeting in June, Tina?
Well, it all depends on Dan and how quickly he gets those notices out, but could possibly be June 16th, but I would guess more July. We do have our first public meeting coming up on June 2nd for more simpler applications that you guys may have seen come out. But like Ron said, this apartment building one may have more public input and participation involved. So that's up to you guys how you want to proceed.
So I think at this point, maybe you know, just think about it. Talk to the residents that are out there. What's sort of the feedback? Because if you're getting a lot of negative feedback, I would think that maybe that's going to sway your mind in one direction. If you talk to the residents, to the area residents, and they all say, yeah, we knew it was coming, we've already seen it, you know, we're good with it, it's not a big deal, or you get the sense that it's not as big an issue, then we may be able to do it in this type of a format. So, you know, I'd be interested in hearing the feedback from council members once you talk to the residents that are out there. So maybe we can put that on the back burner and just give you a bit of homework before the next meeting.
Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just to follow up on just as we get comments in, this property has been designated already for I believe so in the neighborhood of 80 units. So if we decide not to go to the 5 stories, that doesn't mean they're not going to cram 80 units still in on the property. It just means that the idea of 5 stories and 80 units tends to look more like maybe a luxury type apartment structure rather than spread out with small units to meet that 80 unit quota that's in on that property. So as the comments come in, if they're negative comments about the 80, those have already been approved. So it's really the comments about the height of the structure itself that we're kind of looking at for right now.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to sit with Mr. and Mrs. Rogue a few months ago, and they showed me some plans that they were looking at, some ideas, concept drawings, things like that. And they, to my understanding, they've already had some conversations with some of the neighbors, so that may help their situation a little bit. But my take on it was that it was going to be a really nice looking facility, a nice looking building. And, you know, there's going to be some opportunity for some higher density living there, which I think there is a call for in our area. So I don't know. I just think that they've made a pretty good effort in making it work. So hopefully when they bring forward some planning and what have you, it's something that we can agree on. So.
Thank you for that. I think that that proposed apartment buildings in your ward, Counselor, so you might be the one getting all the phone calls. So.
The one point I would like to make, Madam Mayor, is Councillor Westman's exactly right. This site is large enough not to cause any issues as far as parking. If he can meet our existing parking, I think he's actually going to go above and beyond what the minimum requirement for parking is, because he does have enough space to do that. Plus, as a good landowner, he also owns the one in Clandeboye. He's well aware of what it takes to run an apartment building, and he doesn't want any issues with regards to parking. These are bigger units. I think his market is going to be a bit upscale, so it will be quite nice. I think the exact building he is looking at is already in place in Byron, I believe. So the example, if council wishes to, or even residents want to go out and actually have a look and see what this building exactly looks like, they will be able to do that without driving too far to have a look at it. So I think there's a lot of positives in regards to this application. So.
Okay, thanks for that. I don't want to get too much into the planning public meeting comments of the application, but Councilor or Deputy Mayor Manders.
Just to Jeff's point, that if it was at a lower height, they're approved, it sounded like you said, for 80 units. If it does proceed, then at the 5 stories, can they go to a number higher than 80? Or you're saying they can't?
They'd have to come back to council, or come back to the planning department, I should say. And because that site's only been approved for a certain level of units, and that would max that unit out for that piece of property. So any further units would have to come back to the planning department.
And what's the height? What's the height? It's 10 meters is our, and what do they want to go to? What height? Was it again?
If I may, that property is designated for 12 meters, and I believe they're wanting to go to 15. Gotcha. What I'll do tomorrow is I'll email out a copy of the application to all of council so that they have the information in front of them. And then I would suggest that if we did aim for the July meeting, getting the notices out would give residents more time to be able to input public comments, and we can also see how other public meetings have proceeded as well for larger applications like that.
Okay, I think that's a great point, Tina. As I say, I don't want to talk about this application because the application isn't in front of us at this point, but if we can talk about the planning meeting process and try to wrap your head around what that's going to look like. As I say, Tina, I think that was great advice. To me, that makes sense. There'll be probably a few more planning meetings under the virtual belt, so to speak. Just wondering, do we know with these planning meetings that Strathroy and Middlesex Centre have, did they do something else? Like, are they taking comments, like written comments ahead of time or up until a certain date after the meeting? Because obviously if they are, that could be something that could be incorporated into how we plan a meeting that we assume will garner some discussion. Yep, Ron.
Maybe I'll jump in at this point. And Tina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we with the surplus farm dwelling severance that's in process now, we had to modify the wording in the notice. So we're strongly encouraging people to pre-submit their questions or their concerns so they can be raised at the actual public meeting. Tina, help, is there an opportunity for them to physically, if they're able and technologically capable, I guess, of participating in a Zoom meeting? Are we going that far, or how?
I believe so, yes. Yes, they are being encouraged to submit comments to an email address, and it was mine provided in the notice prior to the meeting. But they will also have the option, should they request to participate in the public meeting. But I believe they have to submit a request just so that we can keep track of who to invite and that sort of thing.
I was under the impression when I talked to the county department that they were going, for these planning meetings, they were going to go that webinar format as opposed to this. But I could be mistaken, but I thought that they felt that that worked very well with the ability to ask questions and that sort of thing. But maybe we can get clarification on that once Middlesex Center and Strathroy have theirs.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's it for planning then, I guess. Public Works, back to you, Jeff.
Oh, I guess I'm on. Okay, good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. I have three reports. We'll start with the first one. It's the stump drain report. I think everybody remember we did talk about, it did go to tender earlier in the spring and came back above the limit at which we could issue it. We went back to the residents. They asked us to go back out and get some more quotes on prices to do this drain, which we did. And we did have 2 quotes come back into to us. And the lowest bid was from A+ Excavating. Spreets have reviewed the quotation and recommend going with A+ Excavating and being the low bid, and we can move forward on the stump drain.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on.
Okay. The second one is the asphalt tender. This year we tried North Middlesex and ourselves put together our asphalt. We're actually working together in similar area. Ourselves are on Corsi. North Middlesex are doing, I believe, a block on McGuire and Cassidy, I believe, somewhere over in that vicinity. So we looked at joining up. The overall tender price came back in at just over $1 million. Ourselves at low price came back in at $241,856. So North Middlesex will look after the tender. They have the majority of the paving going on. I'd just like to point out that we did have a savings, approximately $130,000 on this project. Part of it, that savings, I'd just like to talk a little bit about it. It kind of comes in 3 stages. One stage was when we started putting the budget together, we were seeing some numbers coming in over the previous year. So when we budgeted higher than the previous year. And in fact, whether it's asphalt prices are down or whether our tender volumes are up or whether it's the COVID situation, we actually found the prices have gone down on this tender from over last year. So not only did we build in a little bit of extra in case the prices went up, we actually found the prices are down. We got a better price this year. So having said that, that amounted to a good percentage of the savings. We also put into the tender, we bid in some for laneways, milling, some extras that in this section, when we got out there and got basically doing the engineering of it, we were able to save some of the stuff that was originally in the tender. So there is some savings there, which is good news. So overall, we're in good shape on this one. I think North Middlesex are very happy. They are also savings are there also. So as presenting this report, my recommendation is to council to authorize staff to accept the bid from Lavis Contracting and to be a part of the tender that North Middlesex will execute.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Any questions on that? Councillor Masterakis.
Yeah, not on the actual tender, but on the asphalt pricing. I was listening to a bunch of those Municipal World podcasts, and And due to the oil prices being low for the refining of asphalt and making it, that's where they're seeing the benefit. Is there an opportunity, if the prices stay low, that should we look at other projects that maybe were deferred till next year for asphalt, that maybe other areas that are higher priced this year because of COVID? So this is separate. So not really, it's just tied to that question, but I'm not sure if we can get any savings this year if you look at the projects we have, not today, but go back and see if there's an opportunity to do some other asphalt projects earlier and save some money.
Yeah, and through the mayor, when you look back, we actually are ahead on our asphalt program, so we're doing really well there. To move, there isn't really a project that stands out. It would have been the Whalen line, which is going to, at this point, be assumed by Middlesex County. We're still in talks about how that's going forward this fall. So we can't really bring that one forward. So we'd actually be looking at multiple years down the road, moving a project forward. So at that point, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, considering our real projects are Frank Street, Alice Street, Saintsbury, along those lines. So, but I did look because if we could have taken advantage of another couple of paving blocks this year, we could have really done something. But Whalen was the next one in line, and hopefully we get some savings there down the road. So different way.
Thanks, Jeff. Excellent.
Thank you. Any other questions, or I guess any other questions on that? Okay, next report, Jeff.
Okay, next one is Frank Street. So back about a month ago, April 7th, I brought forward a report to council and outlined that the costs were up in the budget, from the budget numbers to the engineering numbers that we got back from when we did the engineering with Dillon Consulting. Number of factors in there was explained in that report. So the idea was to come back to council with an update on Frank Street when we looked at what effect the COVID situation is having on contractors out there. Looked at whether it would be any savings out there to move this forward. And at this point, and part of the deal back in April 7th was to wait to see if the asphalt savings that we saw maybe were coming materialized, and they have. So there is a savings in the capital budget, construction capital budget, from the asphalt side of things. So if we use that savings on the Frank Street project, it would certainly bring us well within line of moving this project forward. It would still be higher than what we budgeted, but I think we could easily move forward with it. Having said that, I guess that is an option, is to move forward and use the savings. And I also mentioned using the sidewalk replacement program of the 70,000 because we will replace a large chunk of the sidewalks on Frank Street. So we could use that as option one. Option two I presented was, with everything still kind of in an unknown situation right now, option is to continue with the Frank Street as the asset management plan has indicated, but to tender in the fall with the idea of going to construction in the spring. I like this idea because there is talk about trying to get the construction industry stimulated again. If there is get everybody back and going again. So I know there's been a few, not just a few, but more than a few rumblings about extra money coming through on some of the programs. So this would be an ideal project to have sitting there ready to put forth if funding did come available. So I like that idea, having a project ready. Number two, by not rushing this out right now, we get a better idea of setting it up in the fall So companies like to get themselves ahead of the game. So instead of trying to sneak this one in or push this one in now through the summer or into the fall, we can easily bring on all the companies and try to get it in for the spring. And I think in doing that, we'll get better prices than trying to force it through. So having said that, my recommendation is to hold off and tender in the fall with the construction in the spring, that we set aside the surplus that we are going to see in the paving tender, and we keep it available for basically capital construction. Road capital construction is what it's already been earmarked for, and we move forward with the project that way. So that's my recommendation on Frank Street.
Okay. Any questions, comments on that? Okay, I believe the recommendation is in the package, Tina, for this.
It will actually have to be a verbal motion.
Verbal
because
motion, okay.
we weren't sure if you were going to be just accepting the report or directing otherwise.
Okay. All right. So with that, if council is agreeable to Jeff's recommendation, we would just have to entertain a verbal motion for that. And that would be to retender in the fall for spring 2021 date. Mover for that, Councillor Masterakis, and seconded by Councillor Regan. Any discussion, comment on that? All opposed? And that's carried. So that is good direction, Jeff.
Madam Mayor, if I may, a couple of verbal updates. Obviously, I think everybody knows, but I'd just like to give a shout out that we've got Nagel Drive in gear. The contractor is working and is, I think, ahead of schedule, which is kind of scary in a way that it's moving along so quickly. I should knock on some wood, so that's great news. Everybody, I believe everybody's excited about it. And I think with the new weather with the nice weather coming up, I think it's going to fly right along. So Nagel's on course, so that's good news. Number two, dust control has half finished in the municipality. Gravel will be starting in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and then the rest of the dust control will go on after that. So that'll be about the middle of June there. So I just want to give a verbal update on those two items, and that's all for now.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. Any questions or comments for Jeff? I just had one. I just wanted to pass along. I received a note from a rural resident who wanted to thank you for your leadership and direction and is quite happy with the ditch work that's being done and the maintenance that's being done. So if you can take that and pass that along to your department, that would be great. Okay.
I will.
Great, thank you. Parks and Rec, Paul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no reports tonight, just some verbals. I'll touch back on part of Ron's presentation earlier, some things I wanted to bring up for council to think about. Some of the openings today, like there was a whirlwind weekend. There's been a lot of questions more than there was answers for some of these things. So we really wanted collectively as the county group of recreational managers, we wanted to make sure we had clarification before going ahead and opening anything. And I think today we received some clarification from the medical officer of health. And I think the key verbiage to look at is how they say we can open and we should only open when these amenities are safe to do so. So I think it's really up to us to have those conversations on how comfortable we feel. I know I've had some good comments with the group in regards to this issue. For instance, some of these things are, to me, could be problematic, as Ron stated before. Like, how do you monitor these things? One of the ones I had was for the ball diamonds. Do we keep them locked at the point as team sports are not being allowed to play, and we can't monitor at night if adults are going out there and deciding to have a pickup game of rec ball. Like it's problematic, and I want to make sure people understand that if these things do open, they have to maintain distance, and they're still, it's highlighted in here several times that maintaining that space and only being within your group of 5, especially family members, is key to that. So I think we're going to be cautious as we approach some of these things. I know our dog park, they've said that can open. We had planned some work to do while it was closed, and we were just waiting on the weather. So I've reached out to our dog park committee. I've let them know ahead of time that for the time being, we will be keeping it closed, and then we can address some of their long needed issues that they've wanted to do. Some of the questions that the groups also pose is for these picnic areas and shelters like pavilions. I believe a lot of them are moving towards they will open them, but not put out picnic tables and not be renting them, as the groups can only be 5 at the time. So I think a lot of these things are going to change as we have an update on the allowable group sizes. Some of the things that we've also talked about, and I sent an email to council, I'd like us to start having some conversations in regards to the pool and summer day camps. I was anxiously listening to the premier this morning to see what his announcement was going to be. Unfortunately, got cut off right before he said day camps may. So I know they were against stayover camps. They've said no to those, as well as schools. I believe the conversation I had this morning was they're going to want us to, if we can, and mostly places like the YMCAs that have day camps operate them as it's a form of childcare to help people to go back to work. That being said, I have some concerns if we were to do it. I know Abby and myself have both talked about this several times. There's going to be a lot of restrictions put in place. I know City of Toronto's canceled their current day camps, but I believe they are looking at some augmented day camps, much like Alberta and BC. Some of the things that they've asked to put in place, physical distancing of 2 meters between each child, no sharing of equipment, play games that they don't have any physical contact. I know for our age group, the 10-year-olds and 4 to 10-year-olds, that may be very difficult as they're often interacting with each other, and you can't tell kids not to run and jump and hug their friends on the best of days. So we'll see how that would go. I also have liability concerns. I know with a lot of recreation, there is in legal assumed risk. And I think that's the biggest key. Assumed risk is in a lot of these things, but at what point do we take that risk? I don't know. With our counselors and our staff members, they may have to interact physically with children. I know sometimes they need to help tie their shoes. They need to help. A child has an accident. They need to be able to be in close proximity. And my concern is if there was community transfer in that way. I know it's very difficult to prove, but if there was, at what point are we held liable, and at what point is our staff comfortable? We luckily haven't hired any summer staff yet this summer. I know other municipalities have, and they've got an indefinite start date. But Abby is currently reaching out to staff that have applied to see what their comfort level would be, because I know that's a big issue. There's a reference to the pool as well with those numbers, because if your gathering group can only be 5 and you have 2 counselors, or in the pool, I think there's a minimum of 3, then you have 2 kids in your pool. Is it worthwhile even opening the pool, as it's a huge cost to get it ready? So these are things that I think we all really need to think about. And maybe as Deputy Mayor Dave Manders had said, so people can start planning now. I know there's a lot of unknowns for a lot of parents for the summer, but if we can at least let them know that it's not going to be an option, they can at least check that off their list as what they're going to do for childcare as they go back to work.
So are you looking for input from us, or are you going to come back with a formal report for next council meeting? Or
I think I'd like to hear council's comfort level with some of these issues, especially the ones that are directed that they can open as of today, or any comments that they have made heard in the community, or any complaints, just so I can help make that advised decision to bring to council.
Okay, thanks. If anybody's got any comments at the moment, certainly let's share them now. If not, certainly over the next time, you can talk with Paul as well as those come up. But Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So there's a number of young families sort of living around me, and I've had conversations with them. I think most people are kind of expecting that we're not going to have a lot for the summer. So I don't know whether or not, I mean, the pool, I mean, I've had a discussion with people about the pool, whether that, and they're expecting that it's not going to open, day camps, those sorts of things. So even before that announcement today, I think people had the idea that we really, not just us, but that those sorts of things wouldn't be available. So they're kind of looking at other kinds of options, and I don't know what they were. I didn't hear any negatives about it. It's almost like a, it's a fait accompli, is where it's going to happen. It just in light of the situation that we're still under lockdown, we're still under a lot of restrictions. So I guess just, from talking to people, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of, or there won't be a lot of, I don't feel a lot of resistance to it, just because I think people are expecting it. I don't know if that helps, but that's just what I'm hearing. So.
No, and I think a lot of it's going to rely on people's comfort level. That's the thing that I've heard from even a lot of the sports associations, is it's the comfort level that coaches, staff, parents, and that can really reduce on. So the cost could go up to put all the things in place to run these, and then the revenue may be way down because you only have 3 kids wanting to come to your day camp. I know there's been talks too about putting kids in pods of 10 with one counselor, but I think that works more for like YMCAs that are for the whole summer, because we have new kids every single week, and one child gets sick. Do we then close down the entire facility for 14 days, as many stores have when they've had an outbreak? And I think that's part of that outbreak planning that Doug Ford was talking about today. Yeah. And do we send staff home? And then if I've been in the building, do I go home? And then if I've been in the building and then was over at the township office, is it then closed? So I think a lot of that planning is going to be pretty complex. And I think it's going to be really paramount to our operating.
And sorry, Madam Mayor, we had a conversation, Paul and I, we had a conversation today a little bit about that, but even with the announcement that schools, for example, are going to look a lot different in September, we don't know what that's going to look like. That makes me very nervous, professionally, that makes me very nervous, but people are just, are actually saying their comfort level is like, well, I don't even know if I want to send my child back. And this is in September, and how would that sort of look? So I don't know. I get the impression that people are very wary. Their comfort level isn't that high, quite frankly, especially when it comes to their kids. I know there's groups of people that are just, they're going out there and just doing whatever, and we know that's happening. I think for the most part, though, people are very wary about it. So I think their comfort level is going to be, I think we're just going to maybe ride this out a bit longer. So again, not sure if that helps, but that's just what I'm hearing. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
I think just to echo that, professionally, when I hear the province say they can't take the risk to send kids to school and they can't take the risk to have summer day camps overnight, it makes me very nervous to have kids come in and have a day camp, or kids come in and use our pool, because that's my responsibility. And so professionally, that's how I lean towards on it.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Daniel said. I don't think there's a lot of high expectations for this year for us to work around parameters like we are with the working staff, as far as germ guards and shields and masks to get us back to a normal workplace. I don't see the push from the community to try to get us to make things work, to take their kids and maybe put them in not a good situation. May come in time, but I don't think this is the time. I think, I don't see it. There may be parameters we need to put in place place in the fall. Some things to think about. Maybe I did get one phone call asking if 2 kids could rollerblades and pass the ball back and forth in the parking lot. I did say it was closed, but there's no ice right now. There's not going to be stuff going on. Are those things that could be scheduled and entertained? I mean, I assume we need to be looking at stuff. To your point, Paul, I mean, if baseball or somebody ever did open up even late in the year, I mean, you want them to sign a waiver that it's their responsibility, sole responsibility and liability to see that the whatever distancing measures need to be in place are enforced by them as a renter or a user of our facility and not our staff. That'll be an interesting, I'm sure that'll be something that'll have to be done up, because I won't want our staff being out there talking to parents and kids and everyone and trying to tell them, how they're to rent our facility or use our facility. Those are all things down the road. Like I say, I hopefully there could be some form of winter sports, and I don't mean just hockey, but whether that looks like a smaller league in hockey and broom ball, different things. I really hope that for the kids. But anyways, low expectations is my understanding right now. So.
I know a lot of the comments that are coming forth are just some of the proposed measures or some of the sports. It's almost, is it even worth it? It's not going to be fun. It's going to be so problematic. So I think a lot of it because it's kids, right? And it's hard enough to get adults to follow the rules that it is children sometimes, that I really think it's going to come down to a growing curve of people getting used to this new normal, as they keep saying. And once kids start, in their daily life, if they do go back to school and they start doing these things, it starts becoming practice, it's going to be easier, but it's going to be very tricky in recreation, getting children and the adults to follow all these things. And I think that's going to be the biggest leap that we have to get over.
Any other comments at this time? Okay, certainly if you hear anything, I would encourage you to keep those comments communicated to Paul. But I think we're probably all shaking our heads at the comments that Councillor Reagan and Deputy Mayor have shared. I think we all kind of see where this is headed. So, and I know what it was like to try to keep my children in line. So I can't imagine going into a group of 10 or 12 5-year-olds and try to keep them separate. So I wouldn't want to wish that on my, high school student counselors, that's for sure. So.
And I have also been in contact with our YMCA, just kind of seeing how their conversations are going. And I think that some people jump the gun, they hear these announcements, they think that means right back to business. And I think it's really a lot of these organizations are saying, okay, now we can really have these conversations, how we're going to do these things that we need to do to operate. So it'll still be a bit, I think, before we see a huge change. Just to follow up as well, I know last week there were some questions in regards to phase 2 and the grant. I did reach out to our regional development advisor, and it's sounding like everything's still normal. As far as they're concerned, everything's still going as planned. I had a few questions that I had as well as that were presented to me. For instance, if COVID-19 completely changes how recreation looks, and we've already submitted a plan, at what point, if we've submitted that plan, can we alter it if we're approved for funding? And I think it's very commonplace that if we say are approved by the provincial level, we would have those conversations at that point, because there may be municipalities that have applied that say suddenly, okay, hey, well, we can't commit to our portion of that funding anymore. Maybe this project isn't viable for us. Or say, if buildings for the next 10 years can't have more than 30 people in it, knock on wood, I hope that's not happening, but would we put in 60 new toilets, or do you put in independent, like family service washrooms as opposed to a whole thing? So I think there is wiggle room in the grant process that if things change, especially our operating procedures, that we can have those conversations. But I think as far as they're concerned, everything's still going normal, and they're still looking at a late spring announcement, I believe. I know everything's delayed right now with what's going on. She was also quite happy to hear of our partnerships with the other members of the county and how we've been reaching out and having these conversations to kind of get a unified front. So she was quite happy on that and was provided a lot of really valuable resources for myself and Abby to look at to see if there's anything that we can be doing virtually. I know once again, it's hard to get the buy-in from people for that, but we're trying, we're putting it out there. We're looking what's out. A lot of it's geared though to the cities that have huge resources, but she also put me in contact with some more rural groups that are kind of more of our size to see if we can develop anything, see what they're doing differently. So we're just looking at that positively right now.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Paul. Any other questions for Paul about anything Parks and Rec? Dave, Deputy Mayor.
Just the, what are your thoughts where going forward with the soccer fields, and if it's looks like could be a great opportunity then if it's developable, and what you were looking at, how is that transitioning, or where does that sit?
Right now it's still in Dillon Consulting's hand. They've done the topography, just waiting to hear back from them. I'm sure they're pretty busy right now with the release of all the construction projects, but right now we're just waiting to hear back from them on what they come up with.
But that was exactly what you said. It's a concern of mine. I don't, I mean, I'm sure a guy like Jeff Little and Ron have dealt with them a lot. I don't know if you've dealt with them a lot, but maybe the sense of urgency with potentially the fields not being used could be passed along to Dillon if they've already started this project. Yeah, there's no doubt they're going to be pulled in all directions, and I think if we don't call for their attention, we're not going to get it.
That's a good point. Any other questions or comments for Paul, Parks and Rec? Okay, moving on. Economic development, Lisa.
Just want to mention, you might have noticed there's some green bows out and about on town and in Granton. Kathy and I put those up today, just kind of brightening up Main Street and showing our support for our community and kind of livening things up a little bit. I know a lot of people had kind of questions like stopping us, like what the bows were for. So we did a quick little social media post just in case, people are confused if we won another contest or if we're going for another contest, but it's just to kind of brighten things up a little bit. We also have some little yards signs coming. It's just going to be like support local and stronger together. Again, just kind of keeping everyone's minds and supporting local and really supporting each other through this process. And social media is busy with the posts from the province and federal government every day and all the different kind of grants that are out there for businesses and individuals. So that's all been posted online and it's on the website as well. And yeah, I think that's kind of it for now on EDC.
Okay. Any questions regarding economic development? I know at the last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, Lisa, you had shared that you had ordered the stop signs or the foot signs and the limited number of people allowed signs, and you had really good response from our local businesses with regards to participating in that. So I think that was really great. There's not a lot we can do with money support and financial support, which they're all looking for, but these little projects certainly, that's an opportunity for economic development to help and support our businesses. So there was a lot of good uptake on that. So
yeah, I think there's probably maybe about 12 businesses that took advantage of those stickers for the door and for their floors. So I know they really appreciated to have that consistent theme of stickers and everything for COVID related.
Okay. All right, moving on. Councillor comments. Any comments? Councillor Regan.
Well, I just wanted to, speaking of supporting local, I know there's a new food truck out by Clark's there. Great hamburgers and hot dogs, encouraging everybody to go out, support them. It's worth it. So.
Great, thank you very much. I think they're on my list for this week's dinner at some
Good.
point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? I believe the deputy mayor's got something.
Yeah, I've got a couple actually for Ron, I believe. Jeff had done a path forward timeline with the sewer plant from capacity through. It took us about 5 years to existing builds to basically a new plant. And I wondered if you could do a path forward timeline, Ron, on the reallocation of the. This is what I'm concerned about: the reallocation of future residential land in our community. And that timeline, we've thrown a lot of balls in the air saying, potentially could the province just, we leave where it is in Badolf and allocate new land to Lucan, and or we have to reallocate the land from Badolf to Lucan, and how that looks. And I think it's very important that we get a timeline and a graph on, this is no, this is yes, next yes, no, yes, no. So.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can get an updated timeline from BM Ross on that. Have it for you at the next meeting. So.
Yeah, just on how that looks. Yeah, good. And then the other thing was
can I just interrupt for a second? Sorry, Dave. Just on that note, have you had any follow-up with the province with regards to the reallocation? I know we had talked to them, was it last emo? But just wondered if.
I haven't heard anything from the province or the local Ministry of Municipal Affairs office either.
So maybe
I can follow up on that too.
Sorry, Dave.
And then just the other thing, back to the car wash. Sorry, everybody. But Ron, what's the? Are they putting the developer here, putting himself at any risk of having to, at any expense that he should be made aware of? Because I think I am definitely not in favor of extending any deadlines and using COVID-19 as an excuse when they were at our council meeting over a year ago. So how is there, and I might be wrong on that, but is there any reminders they should be given that, what, you're coming up to this date, or am I mistaken? And you'd actually have to go through the whole process again.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, the last conversation I had with Arnie regarding that is, I believe they were issued a permit, and I'm going to maybe look to Tina. I believe they've even paid for the permit, have they not?
It was a year ago Christmas.
Okay.
A year ago December 23rd. It was a year ago December 23rd.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, sorry, Tina, but I remember getting an email. We were all pretty excited about it. It was a Christmas present. I believe it was either 2 years ago, Tina. Sorry, it was December 22nd, right? When the township was open till, the township was open till noon, and we got an email saying Merry Christmas. And that was that's 2.5 years ago then.
Yeah.
You
could be correct. We'll have to follow up with Arnie to see. I'm not sure, Ron.
I don't know if there's an expiry date on a permit. I think that hinges on whether the Ontario Building Code has changed or not. I am aware we had an issue one time where somebody had actually taken out a building permit for a residence, and by the time they actually got around to starting it was, I believe, years later, and they were saying, no, I got a permit. However, there'd been 2 building code changes, overall changes to the building code since that an original one was issued. So I do recall Arnie having an issue with that, and he was allowed to stop and had to reapply for the building permit again. But I can double check with Arnie and see what the process is here.
For the timeline.
Things last. Yeah. As a rule, site plans do not expire. So once they've got approval for a site plan, yeah, there's nothing really we can do to push them along. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we can do as far as the site plan as they don't expire. However, I do believe that that's a different answer with regards to the building permit itself. So we'll follow up with Arnie and get an answer on you.
Hey, Ron,
All right.
I believe it's what it was. It was 12 months you had to start. And if you had started, then you have 6 months to kind of keep going. You can't start and stop. So if you haven't done anything, the permit's 12 months. If you've started, then you have to keep it going for 6.
Okay. I'll confirm with Arnie.
That's what it was anyway. Mhm.
That's it.
Is that it? Okay, thanks, Dave. Any other comments, questions? I had a couple, or just maybe comments. I should have asked this of you, Paul. Is the sign at the arena not working? I know at one point it wasn't, but did you get that fixed? And or is it not? Is it not working?
We had got it fixed, and then just since the shutdown, Abby's had issue being able to upload to it. I don't know if it has something to do with her remote connection.
Oh, okay. Okay, because it would just be great to even just get some sort of goodwill message up there or something like that.
I can get the IT to look at it. I was trying not to it's going to be money
Yep.
to fix it. I'm opted to hold off.
Okay. Just wondered, I know I didn't see it, and did we get, Ron, Bettina was talking at our last, well, maybe it was the county one, that there is going to be an emergency management course made available for people that don't sit on the control group. Did we ever get the information on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't believe so, no.
Okay, because we should follow up with her, because they're, I know I was on the county call with her earlier today, and make sure that that goes out, because there might be some interest with some of our other counselors.
Yep.
And then I think you all received an email from the county with regards to the strategic plan and a survey that was being sent out. Just a reminder, if you can participate in that survey, it closes on Friday. So it would be great to get your input as the county is going to begin their strategic plan process. And I think that is it. Okay, any changes to budget? Notices of motion? Okay, we will move on then to our motions. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph approve the accounts as paid as follows. April 2020, $568,270.23. A mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that is carried. Resolved that the Council of the Township of Lucan Biddulph directs staff to waive the penalty and interest normally imposed on June 1st for property taxes due May 29th, 2020 for a period of 30 days. A mover and seconder for that. Councillor Regan and Councillor Mastrakis. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the council authorize the manager of public works to accept the quotation from A+ Excavating for the stump drain tender in the amount of $31,473, including HST. A mover and seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that the council authorizes the manager of public works to accept the quotation received from Lavis Contracting in the amount of $241,856, excluding HST, for our portion of the joint resurfacing project between Lucan Biddulph and the municipality of North Middlesex for the section of road on Coursey Line between McGilvery Drive and Mooresville Drive. A mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Mastarakis and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And that's carried. Resolved that if no one cares to speak to these bylaws on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, read a third time and passed, and that they be numbered 19-2020, execution of subdivision agreement 2647076, Ontario Inc., Phase 4, Old Clover Village, 20-2020, execution of agreement Nagle Drive Water Main, 21-2020, the confirming bylaw. And a mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Mastarakis. All opposed? And that's carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:26 p.m. A mover and seconder for that. Councillor Reagan and Councillor Westman. And all opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Great seeing everyone, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.